Jerry. December 5th, meeting of Oconee County Council, 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to start, as usual, with our public comment session. Mr. Albert Schuler.
I'm Albert Schuler. I just have a couple of questions. Number one is, what is the total number of vehicles that are owned by the county? What's the average mileage at which they're traded in? Could the county, and this is just an idea on my part, but could the county save money by combining the school bus shop and the vehicle shop that does the when you look at most of the late model vehicles, I mean, you're talking about 125, 200,000 miles. I mean, they're not like there used to be. They didn't used to get but 80,000 miles, and then you had to rebuild them. But now they're up to 125 to 200,000 miles before they need any major work. And that brings the question to me is, are we trading them in too quick? I mean, are we trading them in, a whole lot sooner than they need to be traded in? I personally feel that we could save a large amount of money by properly managing the entire fleet. And by fleet, I'm considering mostly cars, pickup trucks, things like that. I mean, I'm not considering rock crusher stuff or things like that, but mainly the school buses and the cars and pickup trucks. And I think that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Markovich.
Good evening. I am Thomas Markovich. I wanted to say something about our setbacks. I think that the work that the Planning Commission has done and what Mr. Root has come up with as far as residential construction is a very good way to work that out. Now, I do have one concern. It only addresses residential property. We could easily have the same situation occur with commercial properties. Sometimes when you do a shopping center or something like that, it's not necessarily all one parent parcel, although a lot of times it may be a parent parcel, but you could have other types of parcels in there that are just leaseholds, but they're separate parcels. The other thing that comes to mind is certain types of hotels. You can have individual condominium ownership of a hotel. I'm not talking about condominiums, I'm talking about hotels that are condominium owned. And so unless we include commercial properties in this, I think we have only solved part of the problem. I'm glad to solve housing, but I'd like to solve the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any council member comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Schuler, sir, the school buses are maintained by the Education Finance Commission. That's under South Carolina. That's not, the school board doesn't have anything to do with the actual school bus maintenance. That's state of South Carolina. And we've approached the school board before about partners with maintenance, and they never got back to us. Nothing ever materialized. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Mulder, do you happen to have available our total number of vehicles, or do you need some time to get that together?
I've got the vehicle list in my office that, I mean, I can certainly provide the answer to him later this evening, but I don't have it on me. But we do have the complete capital replacement schedule that we
Right.
have.
Mr. Schuler, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mulder and I will compile the numbers, and I'll just give you a call, okay, for that? Okay, thank you. Any other council member comments? Well, I would like to make a few comments on a different topic. This goes back to the November 2nd comments of Mr. Tereski regarding our need to plan for the departure of Duke Energy. I would like to make the comment that the sky isn't falling. After Mr. Tereski's comments on November 2nd and the resulting journal article regarding our need to plan for the future, I received a call from our liaison, Mr. Roberts. She gave me permission to quote her tonight, and she would like everyone to know that Duke Energy isn't going anywhere and will be in Oconee County for many years to come. Mr. Roberts will be attending our December 19th council meeting, so she can discuss this herself and also provide us with more information on the many other services Duke Energy provides in addition to running the nuclear reactor. So I hope you join us for our last meeting of the year, December 19th. Thank you. On that note, we'll move on. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Root?
Dear Father, thank you first and foremost for this day that you've made, a gift, lives that you've given us, just gifts. Act with one another throughout the day, love one another, graciousness of one another. Meet tonight in this. Light your wisdom, and I pray that it would help our neighbor.
Thank you. Mr. Hart, the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you've all received a copy of our minutes from November 21st. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any changes that need to be made? All in favor? Aye. Mr. Mulder?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll briefly go through your agenda this evening. First, we have a public hearing and subsequent third reading on 2017-25. It's a modification to the zoning ordinance to modify the small area rezoning minimum area acreage for a rezoning application. Following that third reading, we have a public hearing. It's a joint public hearing on a GHS Palmetto Health JETA bond matter, which will receive public comment and information from representatives from those bodies concerning their JETA bond and the refinancing of their debt and the role that we play in passing a resolution to qualify it through the JETA program for their tax-exempt financing. First and final readings of resolutions 2017-13. This resolution is coupled with the public hearing as a separate matter. This is the resolution that is required by the JETA program for the hosting county where the debt was issued to pass the resolution to qualify the hospitals under that program. Second reading of ordinances 2017-28. This would authorize a lease agreement with the Foothills Farmstead for property that adjoins the Oakway Community Center property in Oakway for a future farmstead development. 2017-29. This is an ordinance that will authorize the acquiring of certain equipment for the rock quarry not to exceed $6,552,500 to purchase equipment to replace the existing crushing plant and move to a new mobile setup for our equipment. Ordinance 2017-30. This ordinance would amend the fee agreement with ITech South, which was dated April 1st, 2015, and it include the individuals of Eugene Carlton Morris and June Copeland Morris as sponsors on that fee in lieu of tax. 2017-31, this ordinance would actually amend the chapter 38 of our regulations to amend the setback requirements for multifamily housing structures, specifically townhomes and duplexes that have a zero lot line connection between the multifamily units. So this would actually bring our ordinance into compliance with allowing those multifamily developments and forgiving the setback on the zero lot line connection of those properties. No first readings this evening. 2 action items. Number 1 would allow me to execute a first addendum to a lease agreement for a property. It's a house that we own that adjoins the C&D landfill. It is a property that we purchased through a, am I on the wrong one? Oh, we haven't even brought that one up yet. I'm sorry. That was something we dealt with today. This is actually an extension on the development agreement and contract with, Historic Oconee Courthouse LLC for the redevelopment of the former courthouse. Originally, we had discussed they're still waiting to hear approval from the Department of Interior and National Park Service for purchasing and doing the rehabilitation of the former courthouse. They're still hoping to receive that, but they submitted a request for another extension on that development agreement. Thank you for stepping in. Too many things rolling around in my head. Local A-Tax, Oconee County PRT, $35,500. These projects, as you've seen listed in your backup material, have been through the PRT Commission for approval, and this is the funding limits to the projects that the PRT Commission is recommending be funded out of the local A-Tax money for this quarter. Board and Commission appointments, you see listed there. We still have some openings. No unfinished or new business. We do have 1 council committee report from Mr. Davis this evening, and no executive session tonight. And that's our agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Public hearing for ordinance 2017-25, an ordinance amending Article 8 of Chapter 38 of the Oconee County Code of Ordinances. No one has signed up for this public hearing. If anybody would like to make any comments now, you're welcome. If you'd like to submit written comments to our clerk, you're welcome. Other than that, we can just close this public hearing and proceed.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to invite, I guess, the GHS up to talk a little bit about the bond.
Wait a minute, we
And-
need to do the 3rd reading of that
That's a
ordinance.
different public hearing. We're not to that.
We're not there yet.
I started us off.
It was
wrong, really
confusing the way it was
sorry. Yeah, we're not to that one
Yeah,
yet.
give me my left foot back.
Okay.
All right.
But thank you. So first, let's have our 3rd reading on ordinance 2017-25. I need a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any discussion on ordinance 2017-25?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
This ordinance was brought up in October. It was postponed so we could have a special workshop with the Planning Commission of October the 24th. We went to a standard of 50 acres to be adopted into a thing. But during this meeting, when we were talking, we had it that an individual property owner could possibly do this, change this without having 50 acres in it. That was one of the things that we talked about. So I think we're jumping ahead of ourselves. We need to cancel this and then have a new one to come up saying that an individual, if he's not satisfied with his zoning, can go ahead and change it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, good. An individual parcel, apart from moving out of the control-free district, can move. This applies really only to the initial rezoning from control-free district. This is a tweak to what used to be the 200-acre requirement and the petition method. It reduced the acre requirement to 50. has all the property that's involved, must be contiguous, and all the owners must sign on, so nobody goes in voluntarily. So that was the fix that the planning commission is attempting to make. And I know Mr. McCall brought up during our workshop, perhaps reducing that 50 acres, and to the extent Mr. Hart is speaking to that, it wouldn't be out of order now to make a motion to modify this down from 50 acres. That was what was discussed during the workshop. If you all do that and pass that motion to say from 50 acres to an individual parcel, then you need to refer this back to the planning commission by state law.
Yes, sir.
I think it's appropriate to do this because we are, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Root, we are the only county in South Carolina that has a requirement like this. The only county.
Based on my familiarity, and a lot of which comes with the low country, and it's a much different animal, you're correct. But we're also, as far as I know, the only entity that has this control-free district, which is kind of this quasi zoning district. It's a very different animal, so that's why I think we have this requirement. That's why it was initially put in, to make for an orderly progression from unzoned to somewhat zoned, control-free district, and then into the particular areas that have real use restrictions. So I think that's why we do have it. It is odd, but control-free district is odd too.
And I think we need to follow the rest of the counties in South Carolina, not trying to be a standout county, especially with something like this.
I believe one of the reasons why we wanted to be the standout county is because we wanted our zoning process to be citizen initiated rather than a top-down, as you would normally topic or title it. Most of your other counties perform top-down zoning, so I'm not sure we want to do that type of zoning method here from what I've heard in the past. So that's why we're a little different from everybody else, because we wanted to design something that originated with the citizens by choice and not from a direction of council.
But Mr. Mueller, you just said by choice, and when this thing first started, when I was on council then, it was the out and out land grab.
That's correct, and that's what we're
They were sucking
fixing.
people in, and we ain't rectified that mistake yet.
That's what you're doing
That's
today.
what you're doing now.
That's what you're doing right now,
Yes.
is you're moving away from that.
Can we rectify what's been done in the past, though? That's the question I'm asking.
No, sir, I mean, we can't make this retroactive. It only go forward from today.
Can those people that were sucked in petition the planning commission then?
There's a third method. The council can go in and actually, if you choose to, rezone those prior zoned properties to another zone. There is a council-initiated version as well. So if you want to go back and clean up or clear up any of those that you want to, that were part of, as you titled it, the land grab, then you can do that. Council has that choice. It just has to be referred to the planning commission prior to your final execution of it. But this ordinance is cleaning up the problem you have with the way it was done in the past. Now it has to be 100% participation with nobody being land grabbed. So that's what you're doing tonight. As part of the small area reduction to 50 acres.
It should be done.
Any other questions or comments?
I do. What do we got to do to make it to where the individual can voluntarily change the zoning that he happens to be in? Or
An
she?
individual property owner has that ability now. I mean, if you own a parcel and you want to zone it something else, you have the authority now to apply to have it rezoned to another zoning use. Right now.
Okay,
Except for control free.
that's what I was fixing to ask you. So,
So that would have to go back to the planning commission for their discussion. I'd rather do things incrementally. I tend to be an incrementalist. So I'd rather, for the moment, just clean up the current ordinance, and then if you wish, we could push it back to the planning commission.
okay.
Okay, all right. So, so let's just vote on this ordinance for this minute. All in favor of 2017-25? Aye. All opposed? Okay, now, how do we proceed and direct the planning commission to reconsider all this one more time?
It's done. We'll make sure.
You've heard us,
We have
okay.
Mr. Pearson here, and we'll bring this back up. It'll be the new year. They're finishing up the review of the comprehensive plan. But there are a couple things, perhaps the question that Mr. Markovich put forward regarding the
Right.
setbacks and this issue as well. We'll be back in front of them. We'll make sure that it is.
Okay, now, please.
You gotta open
Mr.
up the other. I thought they were on first, so go ahead. You have to open up the public hearing.
Public hearing will be held South Carolina Jobs Economic Development Authority and the County Council of Oconee County. Now, to start this public hearing, I would rather have the officials from the hospital come and talk to us a little bit, and then I'll open it up to questions, because I'm sure people want to have a better understanding of what's going on with this before they ask their questions. So, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, County Council, for allowing us to speak on this matter before the Greenville Health System, which includes Oconee Memorial Hospital. I'm Rick Phillips. I live in Walhalla. I was the chairman of the board of Oconee Memorial Hospital when we made the decision to lease our facilities to Greenville Health System and have become part of a larger integrated health care system servicing upstate South Carolina. I've also served on the board of the Greenville Health Authority Board of Directors and the Greenville Hospital System Upstate Board of Directors. I think Oconee County residents, in my opinion, have greatly benefited from the relationship with GHS in terms of access, quality, and value. Greenville Health System and Palmetto Health are now affiliated to create a new health company that will further increase access to care, improve quality, and address rising health care costs. One of the first actions of the new company is this bond refinance request. It will help accomplish the goals of care and improving quality and reducing cost. I know many of you have probably owned businesses and have certainly had made mortgage payments in the past. It's also very likely you've refinanced debt along the way. For a business owner or a homeowner, refinancing debt means more money at the end of the month. For a mission-driven organization like a health company, it means better delivering on commitment to our patients. As was mentioned, this refinance request will save more than $60 million in interest costs, and that's in today's dollars. These $60 million in savings and interest costs can be used to increase care through new and enhanced services, initiatives to improve quality, and ultimately control healthcare costs. What makes this request more appealing, even more appealing, is that taxpayers are not responsible for the repayment of the bonds. The healthcare company and its affiliates are solely responsible for the bond repayment. I myself, as an Oconee County taxpayer, would be concerned if the County Council were putting the full faith and credit of our county government on the line. Thankfully, you are not. I know none of this information is new to County Council because you approve JETA bonds requests regularly. Refinancing debt is a common decision that makes good economic sense. In closing, I want to thank you, one, for your service to our county, and also in allowing me to talk to you tonight and talk to you about this bond refinance request. I hope you will keep patience in mind and know that your decision to support the refinancing these bonds will advance health care in our region. Thank you very much.
Anybody else from that group want to comment? Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Hunter Combe. I'm the campus chief operating officer here. I've been with Oconee Memorial Hospital for over 10 years now. And I just wanted to let you know that we do support this, very much so. As Rick said, we joined GHS a little over 3 years ago. And we did benefit from, one of the big reasons that we joined GHS was we, as you can see from the amount of Oconee-related debt in this package, which is about $75 million. We had significant debt that we were responsible for. and GHS did assume all of that debt as part of the merger. When it was refinanced, that was a significant benefit to us. We did not have a bond rating because we were a smaller organization. We had to have letter of credit support that we paid for from the bank. And by eliminating that, becoming part of a larger organization and getting a better interest rate, there were significant savings on an annual basis to Oconee. I know there have been some questions about whether the benefit of this refinancing would flow to our hospital. We are 100% part of Greenville Health System now, so anything that benefits Greenville Health System benefits our organization. Everything that we do as a system affects every part of the system. So our margin on an annual basis last year was about 1.3 or 1.4% as a system. As Rick said, a lot of you have been business owners and you know how small a margin that is as a percentage of your operations. And I think of that as a margin for error. In other words, if things don't go the way you expect and you don't have the kind of year you budget to have, everybody has to respond to that, including us. So you have to either find expense reductions or find ways to be more efficient and so on. So to the extent that this helps us to achieve that very small margin that we achieve every year without having to make cuts, it's good for our organization. I can tell you we ran very lean for very many years, and cutting is not easy for us to do, and we don't like to have to do that. Our goal is to grow and to provide more services to this community, and so far that's what we've been able to do as part of Greenville Health System. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Anyone else would like to comment before we start with questions? Ms. Ward, would you like to comment? No? Anybody else? Any council members have any questions?
Yeah, I got
Go
a few
ahead.
questions. Whoever wants to take this one. If GHS and Palmetto Health are not merging, y'all are just affiliated, based on what Mr. Phillips said, why don't each of you just have your own, finance your own debt rather individually rather than all together?
Maybe you misunderstood. They are one affiliated health company now, as one organization, Palmetto Health and Greenville Health System, and that took effect, I believe, November 21st.
So it
is
is merged.
It is one entity, yes. I'm sorry if I misspoke or you misunderstood that.
Okay. I had just heard that y'all were two separate entities, so it is a merger.
We're operating as one health company.
Okay. And they will continue to be under the Palmetto Health, and y'all will continue to be under the GHS?
As far as a rebranding of that healthcare company, that hasn't been accomplished yet, but it is operating as one health company, GHS and Palmetto Health. There's a lot of logistics yet to be worked out, but it is one health company, yes.
Okay. And you're saying the savings is $60 million, and that's in interest on refinance, and obviously the majority of the debt comes from Palmetto Health. It seems like it's based on what I guess y'all sent was $863 million plus compared to $642 million.
Yeah,
So,
I don't have those figures in front of me, but.
right. That was just coming off that public hearing. That's what I was just trying to understand a little bit. Because I guess when we got presented with it on voting of it, the first question I just find information about, okay, why are we seeing it for the first time and what do we have? And, I just had a few questions to ask because we get asked a lot of questions, obviously from a council perspective that maybe y'all don't get asked. So that was the one thing. So the savings across the board is just on interest alone, or is it because you're a single entity now?
No, this savings we're talking about tonight is on interest alone.
Based on just the interest alone?
Because of being a single entity, I'm sure there will be future savings that will be coming forward, but what we're talking about tonight is just the interest savings.
Okay.
On refinancing the bond debt. It's just like the interest savings you would get on refinancing your
Understand.
mortgage. I mean, it's a lower interest rate. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. And I guess from the best interest of Oconee County, due to the fact on the interest alone, is it because y'all are combining between the two? Are we getting, I guess two, but that was the first I had heard that y'all were actually merging together. So I apologize for not hearing that y'all are a merging together. So I don't know where I missed that, but I apologize for missing that. So the best interest of Oconee County, because of the interest on how y'all are refinancing it and the merger together, what does Oconee County have to kind of stand to gain from all of this?
Well, I think Hunter alluded to it when he said, and I know we've got Oconee Memorial Hospital, but Oconee Memorial Hospital has been part of Greenville Health Systems, which is now part of this health company that is a combination of Greenville Health Systems and Palmetto Health. And because of being larger and more leverage, you have more negotiating power as far as interest rates and things of that nature.
Okay.
One of the reasons we need to go ahead and do this is the House of Representatives legislation. You're shaking your head, so I won't go into all of that, but with the new tax bill, they've got to pay for some of these tax savings or, tax savings to the general public. And one of the ways they're trying to pay for this is tax exempt interest on 501c3 elections. So if that becomes law, then this refinancing opportunity could go away. So, and like Hunter was saying, we got to think of this as we're all part of this one healthcare system. So what's good for everybody is good for us. If the system suffers, then we suffer as well. And believe me, I've served on the Oconee board. I was on that board for, I want to say 7 years, and been on the Greenville board for 3 years. I'm not paid. I mean, it's all volunteer. I spent hours, and my concern as an Oconee County citizen is quality, affordable health care for our community. You all know as well as I do, if an industry is looking at coming to Oconee County, they want to know what's your school system like and what's your health care like. So that's my purpose in being here. I mean, to me, it just makes sense. I mean, if we could save money for this healthcare system, it's going to benefit Oconee County and Oconee Memorial Hospital.
And how do you see that transferring into improved quality? Because one of the complaints we get the most often is we can't find a doctor here in Oconee County. We've got to drive for well over an hour to find physicians. That is a huge complaint here. I hear it over and over again. I know as hospitals grow larger, they tend to turn into this giant octopus reaching out with all their hands. And oftentimes I feel like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And I'm speaking from my personal experience, and please don't be offended because that's not my intention. But my husband is a brain tumor patient, and I've had nothing but trouble with the GHS system. We have to leave the county and leave the state to get adequate health care for him. And so I get the savings in interest. I don't get the improvement in quality.
Well, me being a layperson, I'll answer as best I can, but if we can save dollars in one area, then we can spend them on improving quality in another. Now, again, I'm a layperson, I'm not a physician, but that's just for me looking at it. If you can save money in one area, then you can use those funds to improve other areas.
But there's no plan in place to improve other areas with the savings. That's just a hypothetical.
I don't have, all I'm talking about tonight, Ms. Cat, is the savings and the interest as far as how the whole, the intricacies of how it's all going to fit together. No, ma'am, I don't have that information with me.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I could, just to clarify a point, and this may be a question for council, in that I represented my council that there was in fact no merger between Palmetto Health and the GHS entity. Ms. Phillips has spoken that there is in fact a merger. Perhaps that's a merger more in fact than legally. If you could address that, because I told them that there was indeed no merger, that this South Carolina Health Company is essentially the group that's helping to affiliate these organizations.
Yeah.
Madam Chair and Council, my name is Kimberly Witherspoon. I'm an attorney at Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd, and we're bond counsel for the transaction. As Mr. Root did mention, this is an affiliation between JHS and Palmetto Health as opposed to a merger. So I know that may be more semantics, but it is not technically a merger. It is an affiliation between the two entities. And with that, South Carolina Health Company being essentially still the parent company with the two of those still acting independently beneath it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think, as she said, I think it's a lot of semantics, but it's an affiliation of two healthcare companies.
How might the pending lawsuit impact all this if the plaintiffs prevail?
As far as the pending lawsuit, all but two of the plaintiffs are trying to withdraw from the lawsuit at this point. Hunter,
My understanding is that this has been through any number of legal challenges. As you know, it's been in the media. The FTC has reviewed it and chosen not to intervene. There have been other governmental reviews of this. My understanding is that the likelihood of the lawsuit being successful is very, very small based on all the previous legal review and challenges.
Okay.
Mr. Reach, some of the changes we talked a little bit about on the ordinance, does that change the things that we were talking about on what is so we're not a merger, we're an affiliation. So, which is fine. I'm not really necessarily concerned about that, just in trying just to understand the issues we had with the SCO listed on there and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Madam Chair, if I may, there are some issues that need to be cleared up on the resolution that recently came to light yesterday. In fact, for me, they do not affect the architecture of the deal, as Mr. Phillips outlined it. It's really a couple of matters within the whereas clauses, factual statements, strategic coordinating organization, which is stated to be a nonprofit partnering essentially with Palmetto Health pursuant to an affiliation agreement to help orchestrate this deal. That's inaccurate because strategic coordinating organization has merged out of existence with UAO, and there is no longer an affiliation agreement, but these entities have incorporated the essential terms, as I understand it, within their operating agreement and bylaws. So those are matters to clear up within the resolution. Essentially, we're taking an amendment and to work out just clear language, but as far as what council is moving, if you go to the now therefore section 1, 2, 3, and 4, that remains the same. Is that responsive?
Yeah. So based on everything that we've seen on there, through South Carolina taxpayers are not responsible for the debt. County council's not responsible for the debt. We are literally looking at it saying we agree with the $1.5 billion debt refinance through the affiliation of the company due to the fact that it is through Oconee. That's why we're involved in it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. A portion of the debt that's being refinanced was actually assumed and used for a project here in our county, which requires our resolution, since a portion of those proceeds are refunding debt that was here.
And just one additional clarification, this is a requirement of both state and federal law that we have the public hearing with notice 15 days prior to this date, as well as support resolution from the governing body where the project is located. And you're actually only dealing with the debt that's allocable to Oconee County. It's not the entire $1.5 billion, and I believe that is clearly stated in, I believe, the second resolution on the resolution that you have in front of you.
Anything else from council? Paul?
So, have y'all, I mean, we're talking about savings here for Oconee County's portion of the debt, right? I mean, y'all are gonna save some money. Is there any idea of how much you will save for Oconee's share of the debt that's being refinanced?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't have it broken out, Mr.
No, we don't
Okay.
have it broken out.
You know,
Estimated.
what's that?
Okay.
I mean, I would really, you know, I was looking on GHS's website earlier today, and there's a lot of mention about Greenville in there. And I would certainly appreciate, and you know, for our Oconee representatives that are here, I appreciate all y'all do. But my message back to the greater board would be, we're not just out here in the, the western outskirts, the frontier of South Carolina. We are a part of this health system, and we would appreciate due regard. We've put this health system, our community has put its health system in the hands of GHS. And we would really appreciate recognition of that fact, not just verbally, but being involved in the community. And again, I'm not talking about our Oconee. I know y'all, do as much as you can. But as we see this health system growing in the state, perhaps in a reaction to the Affordable Care Act or rising costs or whatever else, there's an awful lot of money being spent in other places. And I understand there's a lot of debt that this hospital system is taking on to go forward. But there's also a lot of revenue that can be made. And I would just hope that as y'all move forward, you consider Oconee County and make sure that we have the essential services here. Make sure we have the primary care doctors so that folks don't have to drive to Greenville. We need a good health system here. And we have a substantial senior population here. And we don't need to be sending them having to give up their whole day to go see the doctor. And so that's one of the things I would really, I'm not asking y'all to do anything in particular, but I just fear over the years that we're just going to see this massive consolidation into one big system, and we're going to kind of just be left out here on an island. And I hope that y'all take that concern very seriously, because the county has invested in the health system as well. And that's just my comments. What will be will be.
Anybody else?
And I know y'all came up right here at the end of obviously the year based on, the changing of I guess that is a law that comes up here, which is why this happened so quick. What was prior discussions? When did y'all begin the discussions with the Palmetto Health debt and the GHS debt? How long ago did that start?
It is still a fairly recent conversation that began when they started working on that affiliation earlier in this year. But as you mentioned previously, because the health version, the House version of the tax plan would remove the possibility for nonprofit hospitals to do tax-exempt bonds after December 31st. That is the reason that we are before you in a fairly quick fashion.
Is there any negative or concern that y'all have for moving through that quick, or y'all feel obviously you feel comfortable because you presented it out here, but.
That's correct. We will, when the bonds are issued, there will be a tax-exempt opinion given by our firm regarding the enforceability of this bond issue.
And does it all have to be finished by December 31st, or does it have to be, what parts of it have to be finished to get this through by the end of the year?
There will be a financing that will be accomplished by the close of the year, and we're aiming for the very end of December to give ourselves enough time to ensure that all of the documentation is properly done. In terms of the approvals, because county councils meet, maybe once or twice in a month, especially during the holidays, we need to go ahead and get those on the agenda for early December. So there is additional documentation that I know that each of the boards are working on with their council to consummate the transaction.
Any other comments from council? I'd like to open this up to the public, please. Go ahead, Mr. Canada, but to the microphone.
I just have I generally wouldn't do this, but I just want to ask a question, and I guess it's to you. And I didn't know any other way to do it than to do it right here, so I'm just asking. Did you say that it was federal requirement that you have the resolution?
It's a state requirement in the JETA
JETA,
statute
okay.
requires
I
this
misunderstood that,
resolution.
then.
The public hearing is both federal and state required.
I apologize.
No, that's fine, you're fine. Anybody else? Mr. Schuler, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, ma'am. To make a long story short, I fell off a ladder this week. Got both of my knees knocked out of joint. I had to sign twice, one from the nurse and one from the doctor, that this was a teaching hospital, that it was not anything except a teaching hospital. Now, it would seem to me that if we were going to try to get different physicians and get better physicians in there, when we're doing a consolidation like this, it should be a perfect a perfect opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Suzanne Earle. My question is, why is Oconee County even involved in this? When Greenville Health System took over Oconee Hospital, they took on all the debt. Greenville Hospital System, after that, went through a process to become a private hospital. Why is Oconee County being asked to help refinance debt for a private hospital that has nothing to do with county council anymore?
I can try
Would you like?
to address that
Please,
question.
please do.
So portion of the projects that are being...
You're being recorded, so to the microphone.
So a portion of the projects being refinanced were originally issued for the Oconee Memorial Hospital and are in this location. So based on the way that the federal and state law is required, that we must have Oconee County to do the public hearing and then for your council to have a support resolution in order to go forward with the projects related to Oconee County only.
But Oconee County has zero input into the hospital anymore. We are not, Oconee Memorial Hospital only has the name Oconee in it. We have absolutely nothing to do with the private health system that it is a part of. And even though the projects were done here, they assumed all that debt when they took over our hospital. So I don't understand why we are even having to consider this. And why should Oconee be involved in a $1.5 billion bond reissue? Why are we helping a private company save money? You don't do that for any other private companies.
No, and Mr. Root, would you address this, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, ma'am. And Mr. Rivers, please jump in, because I'm not bond counsel, and I'm not one who claims to master GHS's situation or organizational chart. But the county is obligating itself in no way as to any monetary pecuniary liability on these bonds, nor is the state. The only obligor, the only entity that has to, correct me again if I'm wrong, pay this bond issuance funding back is the South Carolina Health Company. So the county's only involvement is to hold this public hearing, issue, if it so chooses, a support resolution as required by the state statute. The taxpayers are not responsible on any tier, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, for any of these funds. And the only reason it's being done in Oconee County is the same reason it's being done in Sumter County, Richland County, and Greenville County, is because there are facilities upon which some of the funds could be allocable located within those jurisdictions.
Well, I would urge you to vote against it unless you get something in writing from them that guarantees that a significant portion of the claimed $60 million savings will be spent in Oconee County.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Mr. Turetsky, please.
Thank you. My name is Ben Turetsky, and both my wife and myself have been involved quite a bit in having various things done to our bodies. And I do know that an expert as far as hands, trigger fingers, and those kinds of things, not that kind of thing with our bodies. We're too old for that. There's a hand guy, I forget his name, in Greenville, who comes out here to Blue Ridge, Rudisill, I believe it is, because he is, I assume, very adept at it, and my wife has had 2 trigger fingers done, and I probably within the next couple of years will have a couple also. So when people speak about, us not having people or physicians who are experts in an area coming out here, my experience is that actually happens. The second thing is that the guy who did my hip in Greenville, Dr. Bernicle, is actually, I understand, coming out here one day a month also to perform surgery here. So, I can't possibly know all of the other interrelationships between, who is in Greenville, who actually comes out here. But, obviously they cannot handle every single, and I wasn't aware of the fact that your husband had a brain tumor. I would imagine that those kinds of services are not available in every single hospital. But anyhow, I just wanted to give some of my own experience and also kind of talk about the fact that there is interchange, and I think it's good. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Yes.
I just want to ask you one thing. I don't expect to answer right now. I'm not trying to put you on the spot by any means, but I would like to meet with you at y'all's convenience sometime. A lot of concerns I have from the people in my district is that once again, I'm going to use the word monopoly. They're claiming a monopoly, and in fairness to you, until I get your response, I can't use that word. It'd be unfair to you. And the way the billing system is, people get double billed and things like that. And that the biggest concern I'd like to talk to you about, not now, because I ain't want to put you on the spot, is that you're gobbling up all the private practices. There's no such thing. It's either if I was a doctor, I would be with you, or I wouldn't be in business. And I would like for you somehow to explain that to me. Maybe you don't have to do it now. And that if you're a physician and correct me if I'm wrong, because I ain't no doctor. If you're a physician and you leave the system, you cannot practice medicine or whatever within a so many mile radius of your nearest facility. And once again, please don't think I'm trying to badger you, because I don't know nothing about medicine.
I'll be happy to address those issues. As far as the non-compete that you're referring to, that actually was us in the old days before Greenville Health System. We did do that. As far as I know, I'm not involved in physician contracting. That's not something we do currently. In terms of the physicians becoming employed by our organization, we started employing physicians about 10 years ago, right about the time that I came, was the first physicians that we employed. And again, we were independent back then, not part of Greenville Health System. And really it started with doctors coming to us and saying they could not survive in this community unless they were employed. So the first doctors that were employed here were doctors who were already here, who needed to become employed, primarily family medicine physicians who simply couldn't make it anymore, couldn't pay the overhead, couldn't keep up with all the regulatory requirements, the requirements to install computer systems and so on. We do not pursue independent physicians in this community unless they approach us and ask us if we would be interested in talking to them about becoming employed. We do recruit very actively to try to bring doctors to the community. I can tell you there's a nationwide shortage of almost every type of physician. It's very challenging to recruit anywhere. We do have some real advantages here in terms of other rural parts of South Carolina or any other state. Of course, we have the beautiful lakes here. We have a tremendous quality of life here. We have a good economy here. We have Clemson University nearby and so on. But it's very challenging to recruit physicians to any place, and especially to rural areas.
Thank you very much.
If our meeting was any later in the year, would it still been like if it's December 19th, would it still be able to be pushed through?
We wouldn't be able to go forward because we need the 15-day notice for the meeting.
15-day
Prior-
notice for what meeting?
Before your meeting, before your county council meeting. So we published a notice more than 15 days ago for this meeting, for the public hearing that we're holding right now.
I believe that the essence of Mr. Davis's question, Madam Chair, if I may, maybe if, and tell me if I'm wrong, if council does not take action but tables this resolution or takes negative action, what would the repercussion be? We've had the public hearing, are having it, and it's then brought up back on the 19th. What effect would that have on what you're doing?
So one additional step after each of the public hearings, we also need sign off from the governor. So the way that we operate is that the governor is actually the highest officer in our state. So after our meeting, we will also need to submit something to his office for signing. And so we would prefer not to wait later in the year because we're working with so many schedules and working around the holidays and trying to get this wrapped up prior to the close of the year.
So I guess I'm coming back to the timetable of when this kind of got thrown at us. I'm just now getting a lot of information, and I'm no hospital person or whatever else, but it's on my agenda. It's my elected body to kind of figure out, hey, I see a lot of advantages there, but then I also see a lot of concerns, and, like I said, we're the ones that get asked the questions. What are these two groups doing? What's GHS? What's my hospital doing? Because this is our hospital. We're very proud of it. We're proud of the people that run it, and we're proud of the people that work there. And it's a lot of people feel like it's a step up. It's becoming the giant, and it's not our local hospital if this occurs. And I know it's not necessarily that. We've addressed a lot of these things tonight, but it's just concerning because it's so quick, and I don't even worry about the 1.5 billion. Every time I say it, I kind of look down. I know y'all do too, but I know the financial stability of GHS, which is why Oconee aligned with GHS because of the things that they got from it. I'm not that familiar with Palmetto Health to comment on that. I just know that the assumption of the majority of the debt is quite concerning to me, and You know, I mean, I just don't want to rubber stamp something. I mean, that's what I guess that's what we're kind of asked to do.
Well, what the support resolution really does is not really directly address the affiliation that Kevin has kind of gone over more directly. It's more towards the bonds that are being issued for the savings that it's been previously mentioned. So the affiliation has taken place. The savings is what we're hoping to be able to accomplish by closing this bond issuance by the end of the close of the year.
This guy back there is pretty, would you like to say something? You awful upset.
No, I don't mean to be upset. I'm just, like a lot, I think I'm
Well,
trying
it's
to.
your
Trying to
meeting
process all
as well
this.
as ours. You have a right to speak.
And I will do so. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ernie Lombard, and I'm trying to rationalize, if you will, and correct me if I'm wrong. If approved, $60 million in interest can or should be saved. However, it will be authorized to obtain up to $1.5 billion. Am I understanding that correct?
So the amount of bonds that would be issued to refinance the existing debt referenced in the notice and in the support resolution would be approaching $1.5 billion, correct?
So in order to save $60 million, it would be approved to loan up to $1.5 billion. Am I correct?
I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying. They are basically refinancing current debt that they have in the amount of $1.5 billion. And by doing that, they're gonna get a lower interest rate, which is going to require less interest to be paid on that existing debt over the repayment schedule. Therefore, saving $60 million. So it'd be like you right now having a house valued at $100,000. You owe $100,000 on it at an interest rate of 6%. So you're gonna end up paying probably $800 a month in interest on that $100,000 at 6%. What they wanna do is refinance that $100,000 with another bank and get a rate of 3%, thus cutting the interest that they have to pay on that home loan in half to, say, $400,000. Therefore, saving $400 a month on their payment for an amount of $4,800 a year, for an amount of 1.2 plus million, 120,000 over a 30-year period. So that's what they're doing. They're refinancing existing debt at a lower interest rate, and the $60 million is that saved interest that they're going to get from a lower rate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Lombard, L-O-M-B as in boy, A-R-D. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schuler, I hate to make you walk that way.
I'll bring you a microphone, buddy.
Okay, Mr. Schuler, you have the moving mic.
What I'd like to mention is that from 2004 until y'all started seeing me here, I was at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. And their doctors were contract doctors. They got paid by contract. They could not leave the system without, giving notice and not telling anybody where they were leaving. The Mayo is also going downhill fast because they're getting out of that kind of medicine and going straight into nothing but research and research on a research grant. And I think when we look at this, we're doing the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Jim Godner.
I just want to express my frustration. To me, this is very simple, like some of the legal folks have tried to say. This has nothing to do with whether we got physicians here or not, has nothing to do with, I sympathize Mr. Kane saying, gee, we're this tiny little Oconee sitting out here on the tail end of this great big system, what are we going to get out of it? I understand that's an issue, but it's not going to be addressed with this particular issue. All they're trying to do is save us some money. And we shouldn't put off decision on this. We ought to say, yes, let's go do it, save the money. And if you got other issues that you want to talk about, availability of physicians or not, I'm sure these folks will talk with you later. But I'd really be surprised if you thought it was right to put this off. You ought to decide tonight, tell them to go ahead, save $60 million, and be done with it.
Thank you, Mr. Codner. Mr. Markovich.
Really hadn't planned on saying anything.
But
For
go
the
ahead.
record, I am Tom Markovich. However, the question has occurred to me as we talk about $60 million. I guess we're talking about $60 million in savings in aggregate, total. And we're talking about restructuring debt that already exists. So does that mean that everything's going to start with a new date and end on a new date? Or are we restructuring individual types of debt? Are there going to be different maturity dates? Or is it going to all come under one bond? Because the payback would be staggered. And so it's not as simple as just saying, and I understand saving $60 million is saving $60 million no matter how you do it. But when we start talking about percentages and return and time and money, sometimes that can get a little bit lost.
Thank you, Mr. Markovich.
Madam Chair, the 60 million is a simple calculation. It's a totaling of the amortization schedule, estimated interest over those time periods, one versus the other. So he's correct that it's a simple calculation. If you wanted to factor in the interest rates of each of the current individuals as they would impact the savings over that time into the total, that's one way. You got the net present value calculation. I mean, it's much easier for us to put it into a simple calculation, which is purely a totaling of the interest as indicated on the amortization schedules of both loans. I would assume, yes, the repayment schedule is going to be different because each of those individual outstanding debts probably had a different maturity date, so their total savings are going to be different based on the individual. But I think that if you look at just a simplification of the savings, you take the remaining amortization schedule of each of the existing outstanding debts, add those up, and then add up the next 30 years or 30 years, I assume is the loan, 30-year amortization schedule? Typically. So you got another 30 years, so they would be starting over with another 30 years. So he's absolutely correct, but it's easier just to discuss the simplification of the calculation.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, I'm not against any of this. You know, it's a combination of Palmetto Health and GHS both together that, you know, is throwing up some concern on how those two entities are aligned on there. That's what I get all the questions about. That's, you know, my concern.
Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from us? Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to close this public hearing then. First and final reading for the following resolution, a resolution in support of the issuance of the issuance by the South Carolina Job Economics Development Authority of its hospital revenue bonds, et cetera, et cetera. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
At this point, could I have a motion to amend so that we remove, as I spoke about earlier, any reference to strategic coordinating organization independently and note as represented by borrower, it has been merged with upstate affiliate organization. Also, that any reference to the affiliation agreement is removed and in its place is stated as represented by borrower. The terms, essentially, of the affiliation agreement were incorporated with the operative terms, were incorporated within the articles and bylaws of South Carolina Health Corporation UAO, GHS, and Palmetto Health. If someone could just state that motion as stated by council, we could clean up the resolution.
Okay, we need a amended motion as stated by our council.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we have, once again, our motion on the table in support of the issuance of these bonds. Any discussion of this motion?
So if we're to set up a meeting with y'all tomorrow, that would be too late for the following meeting to get this through on your timetable.
So we've had the public hearing with appropriate notice. In my 9 years of experience, we have always had county councils both have the public hearing and support resolution at the same time. I understand this is possibly extraordinary circumstances, so if this council needs to table it until your second meeting, then I believe that we can come back, so long as we have on your minutes for the public hearing for this meeting that we would be sufficient for our federal law purpose for the public hearing.
Is that fine with you?
I'm not going to speak as to the.
No, I mean,
on
it's
their
the
bonding
time,
program.
what she is speaking on with the timetable of what, since we've already had the public hearing.
Again,
So the
I'll-
only thing we would be held under is the 24-hour meeting for an agenda, correct?
Correct. Yeah, as far as getting public notice for a council meeting, if you're going to hold a special meeting, that is correct. Again, I'm just not speaking as to the effect of separating the public hearing from the approval of the resolution, or the failure to approve the resolution, period. I'm just stating, yes, you certainly could have the approval on the 19th. You could have a special meeting in between now and the 19th to address the resolution, procedurally.
I'd make a motion to table it until the 19th. I just would like to learn a little bit more information between the two entities between now and then, so I'm better to answer to my citizens' concerns.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
And I'm willing to meet in Greenville at y'all's convenience. I mean, that's, or in Oconee, whatever y'all would like.
Any comments? So we're going to move to table.
Yes, ma'am. That's the motion.
Okay, all in favor of tabling till the 19th?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, just to jump in, Mr. Mulder brought up a good point. Just in case we want to have a special meeting or one is required, can the motion just be to table? That way, if we have a special meeting, we can bring it back up before the 19th.
Oh, I'm in that motion to table it until given notice.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor of tabling for the moment?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We will reconsider this. All right. Sorry. Let's move on. Second reading of the following ordinances. Ordinance 2017-28, an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a ground lease agreement between Oconee County and Foothills Farmstead.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 2017-29, authorizing Oconee County to enter into an equipment acquisition and use agreement for the purpose of acquiring equipment not to exceed $6.5 million for the rock quarry.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the fee agreement between Oconee County and iTech South, et cetera, et cetera.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? An ordinance amending Chapter 38 of the Oconee County Court of Ordinances in certain limited regards and particulars regarding the setback language from multifamily housing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Ask one question.
Sure.
Mr. Markovich, are we gonna consider what he said during public comment to
Yes, sir,
include
Mr.
commercial?
Yes, sir, Mr. Root made a note of that and expressed that earlier, that they're gonna address that starting in the first of the year, once they get finished with the review of the comp plan, to address the commercial portion of it.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No first readings. We have discussion regarding action items. To authorize the county administrator to execute a first addendum to the agreement for purchase and sale of property related to the historic Oconee County Courthouse, et cetera, et cetera. Do we need a motion to approve this?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All
We have
in-
a quick update on that or whatever.
Yes, sir. Again, I'm Tom Markovich, Historic Oconee Courthouse LLC. We have been pursuing this very diligently, and I apologize that it has taken so long. But we've gone through several revisions in order to accommodate the requirements of both the state Historic Preservation Office and the feds. So right now, my architect is supposed to be finishing up drawings tonight that we are going to be resubmitting this week. And so we expect, as soon as we resubmit to the State Historic Preservation Office, they have up to 30 days to respond. We're expecting a response quicker than that because they've really already been through the process. They're just looking at the changes they've asked us to make. So we're expecting to be able to, in less than 30 days, to get the state approval, and then it automatically goes to the National Park Service, and then they have 30 days to respond. And so, but generally, once the state office approves it, generally, the National Park Service goes along with it. One concern that we did have, I think is right now it looks like it's going to survive. We did have some concerns about if anyone's been keeping up with the news, the federal tax law. The House was trying to kill the historic preservation tax credits on the federal level. The Senate right now has an amendment in there to keep it, and it looks like it's going to remain. So we feel pretty good about that. And even if that were to evaporate, it still wouldn't kill the project because we still have state tax credits coming in from two different mechanisms, plus the help of Oconee County. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. ATAX, 35,500.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. What is this on this sequential tool? $20,000. Where's that money going?
That'll go to a number of events and marketing items to celebrate the county's sesquicentennial celebration this year. We're 150 years, I guess, this year old. So we're putting together a year-long celebration. These funds will go towards, from the ATAX, obviously, will go towards funding that particular monthly events for celebration of the sesquicentennial.
Is it any advertisement, or is this?
There'll be advertisement, there'll be marketing materials, there'll be events, so it's gonna get spread out over a multiple, different areas.
Okay.
Is that all the money that we're gonna put towards this? Is that
We
for the
put
rest
in-
of the year?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
we're
for
trying.
20
Yeah, we're trying. We've put in a few dollars just in time and support of getting it started. We've got a committee of volunteers that are working on that. But again, very, very minimal, mainly just time of staff, and the volunteers. But at this point, this is what we're trying to apply towards it. If, you want to give us some additional money, I'm sure the committee would love it. But again, we're trying not to do a whole lot.
I understand. But you only turn 150 once.
You can't turn 200 until you turn 150, right?
That's true.
So maybe at 200, they'll spend.
They'll spend double, yeah.
They'll spend a lot more.
So, Ms. Kamick, we had that phone call about the concert. Pickens County was interested in doing something with Oconee County because they're turning 150 next year as well. And they had, was there any further action or discussion on that?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Because they wanted to do this really big concert involving as many of the Pickens County school students, bands and
Choirs,
orchestras
etc.
and chorus, as well as Oconee's bands, orchestras, and choruses. So, and maybe rent out the Little John Coliseum. Because again, you only turn 150 once, and we thought it would be a nice thing. We think it would be close to revenue neutral. I don't know if you think so, Mr. Mulder.
I don't think so, but they claimed it could be. I don't see anything, and I haven't run any numbers to determine whether it could be revenue neutral.
No, and they were going to get back to us with some sort of numbers, and they haven't yet. And
Yeah.
actually, I was just thinking yesterday that I needed to call Mr. Costner and see what was going on with that. I will say this, though, I did approach the school district about it, and they would be more than happy to participate, so.
Maybe they'd be willing to put some money into it as well.
One thing at a time. All right. The issue at hand, the 35,500 for PRT. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any additions for our boards and commissions? I guess I'll take that as a no. Unfinished business. We do have a little bit of unfinished business. I did receive a letter a few weeks ago from our Planning Commission Chair, Brad Kisker. Their takeaway from our joint meeting, they wanted to know if they can proceed with looking at the corridors. They had listed in what I feel is the appropriate order of importance, with traffic mitigation was on top of their list, alternate routes, design standards, landscaping, and signage on the bottom. So they were looking for our okay to move ahead with discussing some of these. I think traffic and safety should always be number one, and it's my personal opinion that they should proceed with those discussions at this point in time. Your opinion?
I agree.
I agree. Yep.
Your opinion? I don't know that we need some formal,
Of course we do.
everything formal, or can I just send an email?
Since it is an action by you all directing the planning commission, if someone can make a motion to add this to the agenda real quick.
Oh, okay.
I move that we amend the agenda to include an action item for planning commission direction
On the corridor.
on the corridor plan.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so can I send that letter?
Now a motion to actually send the letter.
Can I get your okay to send that letter?
Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed? Thank you. I will send the email back to Mr. Kisker. new business. I just wanted to, this is for your information only. Mandy Gaither from WYFF Channel 4 wanted or is interested in news tips from us. So whenever anything interesting is going on here, between Katie and I, we'll come up with a little paragraph to send over to her so they'll have information on what's going on in Oconee County, make us a little bit more visible, and provide some alternate forms of communication with the public. Northland Cable is interested in airing our videos on their Channel 4 government channel. You know, we do have them on YouTube, but I don't see a problem with sending them a copy of our proceedings. So I just wanted to bring that out in the open. Does anybody have any objections?
No, I would just, I guess if we're sending stuff to media, prefer it to kind of go through our administration as well, if that's, is that usually how that works, or does it matter?
If we're just sending them a file copy of the meeting, I don't have an issue
Okay.
with Ms. Smith doing that on a regular basis. You know, set up a schedule, the next day, submit the file to them in some form or fashion. I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
Now, I mean, if we're answering news questions about what's going on at the meeting and things like that, I would obviously prefer those come between me and Ms. Amanda Brock, PIO, / executive assistant / multiple things. But if it's just a file transfer for them to broadcast, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Okay, so that was, you know, just a point of information. We do have another item we want to consider here, and we probably need a motion to amend the agenda again, but let me just discuss it first, and then David Root can point us in the right direction. This is regarding notice for BZA actions and special exemption hearings. It's been brought to my attention that the minimum notification requirements are often insufficient for the BZA to obtain meaningful input from all those who are affected. And so the concern is to possibly reconsider our notification requirements and broaden them, make it so we have more notification time, more signs put out. But in order to develop this new clear notification standard, it was suggested to me that a small committee of maybe 2 planning commissioners, 2 BZA people, and Mr. Huggins, and perhaps 2 residents get together, figure out what's best, bring it before the planning commission, and then bring it back to us. So I feel we should just go ahead and make it easier for our BZA to get the information out that they need and get new requirements in place for notification of BZA actions and special exemption hearings. So now tell me, what do we need to do to set this in motion?
It's an action item, obviously not a final action item as it's going to go through a number of steps, but since it's an action, a direction from you all, you would again need to make a motion to amend the agenda to, I don't know if you're wanting to create an ad hoc committee or you just want to send it to the BZA.
I would like to have a couple of members of the BZA and the Planning Commission and a couple of residents just get together, figure out what would be the best for us as far as notification requirements so we can improve on our current minimum notification standards.
What is our notification now?
Our notification is simply by state law that we follow the state standard. That's what's written in there. So I have concerns about deviating from the state standard, but I know that a lot of folks would like it to be more, and perhaps it can be if we walk that line consistently with all special exception variance issues. It sounds like it's really a matter of creating somewhat of an ad hoc committee between citizens, BZA, and Planning Commission. If you want to just direct the administrator to do that, to bring those folks together, and then we'll get something in front of the Planning Commission after that. Y'all can just make that direction right now. And I'll work with Mr. Mulder to get that
That would be good then. So can I have a motion to go ahead and do that, please?
The BZA we appoint the BZA, right? So those are citizens already. And you're wanting more citizens on?
Well, yeah, some that aren't affiliated with the 2 commissions necessarily. But what?
But we appoint the citizens on the BZA. I guess
Well, I would like the perspective of a resident who needs that notification as part of this committee, or this thrown-together committee.
to make it easier for people to figure out what's going on through the BZA?
Yeah, so that they receive proper notice. We've had issues where, and it always leads to irate citizens when they don't receive the proper notice, they're not aware, because of the way we've been limiting signs, how many people we've been notifying through the mail and that kind of thing. That's what I would like looked at.
Does any other county do anything different than the state? Do they have their own extra stuff on? And I understand, your concern on that BZA, because when you're, there's multiple reasons and multiple things we have that, but maybe there's something better that we can do. But, we have our citizens on there, so maybe our representatives need to do a better job at,
It's not your representative, it's the
Well,
procedure the
that's-
staff goes through. For example, minimum standards, you post the property with the hearing notice, you put an ad in the paper. What I believe the concern is we ought to be picking a radius around the affected property and sending a direct mailing to property owners that either adjoin or are within a certain radius of that property. So some of the concern is people drive by or live around the corner from this particular affected property, they don't get any kind of direct notice, let's call it, and they don't drive down that road because they go the other way to get out of the community. They could be impacted by the variance that has been approved on that property. So I think the concern is, how do we broaden our contact that staff uses to announce this particular hearing notice? And I think that's the issue that we're dealing with, and that's what we want to try and figure out. What's a suitable procedure and what is a suitable geography of contact, if you will, that we should implement, the staff should implement to notify property owners of this particular hearing.
And so, Madam Chair, if I could, the motion would be we just do it together, to amend the agenda and direct the administrator to gather an ad hoc committee with a reasonable representative, a number of representatives from the BZA, citizen representatives not a part of a committee or commission of the county, and the planning commission to evaluate notice requirements for BZA hearings. Part of that, I'll survey other counties, see what's working, what's not working, what has been challenged, what has not.
we hadn't even had a person to fill this Board of Zoning Appeals and we're in December, and we're talking about adding more people to the Board of
We're
Zoning
talking about
Appeals.
solving a problem. That's what we're talking about. And there's people who are willing to do this, so let them get together and solve this issue.
Are they willing to serve on the BZA as well?
Perhaps, we'll ask.
Or the board, Building Codes Appeal Board, or the Conservation Bank Board?
That I don't know.
Nice.
We
These
will
have been
ask.
vacant
We
for
can ask.
6 months.
So the
bro.
citizen would be the one to help do this, or they would just come up with a way to do?
They just help do it. This is staff's responsibility. They would be, this would be an advisory group to help advise us on a better way to do it.
It'll be a several-step process. This group is not going to come up with anything that's binding. They're going to come up with ideas that they feel coalesce around a good idea. That will then go to planning commission, which will go through it, digest it, come up with their best idea, which then will come to you all.
There'll be a sunset, so to speak, on this ad hoc committee.
Yeah, like
Yeah, it's just-
a couple of months.
One topic.
Okay,
So we need a motion to amend the agenda?
motion to amend, blah, blah, blah.
Motion as stated by the county attorney.
Make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Where are we? Council committee reports, that's you, Mr. Davis, Recreation
I'll
Review
be-
Task Force.
I'll be
Task
quicker on
Force.
this one. So, but we met on November 21st. We're still working to actually get a 5-year plan from our city recreation. We have struggled to get that from the city, so they are still working on that, so we can actually understand what their budget is and what their records are to understand that, because right now we're at 1 and 2 years, and that's about all that we have on there. So, the biggest thing, like I said, is to get the, clear picture of what it's actually costing the cities on, rather than just a single year budget on there. We talked about what the, city residents versus county residents pay again. And one of the most unique things we talked about is the tourism impacting on the cities. Obviously, our cities are struggling on a revenue cycle on there. And what was very interesting, that every city, the number one thing that they stated that brought tourism into their cities was recreation, whether it be tournament games or from other cities and everything like that. And they also stated that during recreational seasons, it's when the most people are at their restaurants, which help with their H-tax and everything like that. So, and that was a resounding across the board, besides obviously Fairplay, which is an unincorporated area on there. So that was the biggest thing that I saw on there. I had Mr. Phil Shirley did a presentation on PRT that he has done for council, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But he spoke about through the A-tax, accommodations tax, and tournaments and different things that we have in here, what that can do for not only the county but each of the cities through recreation on there. I asked each members of the city to come up with what their facilities are, what they own, what their upgrades is, what their cost to upgrade each of their facilities are, and what their recreation outlook is under their 5-year program without any kind of funding period on there. We also talked a little bit with Sheriff Crenshaw, and he addressed juvenile crime has increased across the county, which is a vast concern on there. It costs between $45 and $55 a day to house a juvenile on there, and he has obviously asked for additional funding on that because they ran out of their funding that they have to house juveniles, and obviously crime is not going to stop because of that. Biggest thing he's seen is continuing to engage the youth in recreation will obviously cost a whole lot less than it is to house these juveniles on here. Came up with some goals for the next meeting, which is a 5-year plan where the cities go under their current circumstances and their current budget, and a 5-year recreation program of zero funding, and what would their recreation program would be with funding, and what their overall goal with recreation is, and to actually complete the city recreation data form showing a 5-year budget cycle on there. We've got our next meeting scheduled for January 2nd. I have spoken with the cities on there, and they will actually have by our next meeting was supposed to be in December. We changed that due to our employee drop-in, but they will actually have the reports where we actually understand their budgets from there moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. No executive sessions today. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.